Right, dear and valued viewers, here we are. It's a good day. It's the morning after. Porsche. Unbelievable. But we're not here to talk about sport. We're here to talk about cars. That's what we do at Motor Matters. And I want to go back a little bit in history here. Sort of circa 20 years ago, when SUVs were starting to make their mark, make their awareness, their presence felt a little bit. And, you know, at that stage, you didn't really have a hell of a lot around. You maybe had the latest evolution of the Defender being, you know, sort of a 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old chassis with some new bits and bobs attached to it. You had a really ugly old Land Cruiser, which you can still buy today, you know, and most of them probably still going. And, you know, that was about it. The Germans were starting to do something. You know, you had Merc, BMW and Audi starting to think about, you know, do we make SUVs, do we make MPVs? Because at that stage it was a thing. And then suddenly left of center came this company that no one saw coming at all. It was totally unexpected. And the SUV market there, they thought was going to be a total loss for the company. They were wrong. All the commentators, all the pundits, they've sold over 1 million of these things. I'm of course talking about the Porsche Cayenne. Up until the Cayenne, you had the 911, and then you had the Boxster, and that was it. And it was showing. Porsche was in trouble. They had red all over their balance sheet. They were losing money. Can you believe it? Porsche was losing money until the advent of the Cayenne, which changed their fortunes completely. Brought them a whole host of new customers because Porsche had it right. Guys who drive these things and girls who drive these things who want a Porsche badge or want the sports performance attached with it. And boy, do you get the sports performance attached with it. I'm actually just going to turn this thing off and I'm going to start it again because you need to hear this. Rah! Rah! It tells you it's on. There's no doubt about it. And this is what the Cayenne is. This is the latest version. It's the S version, which I think is in the sweet zone for me. 350 kilowatts and 1 billion Newton meters of torque from a thumping 4-litre V8 under the hood, with an exhaust system that it's a bit yobbish, isn't it? You know, it's noisy. It's that prap prap as you're changing down gears, but it's not prap prap. It's just a prap prap. It's still a prap, and I'm kind of like, but it's a lot of fun. I can't get away from it. And yeah, this is 2.2 tons of thumping performance. And Porsche, when they built the Cayenne, did outrageous things. I mean, the original turbo had 350 kilowatts, which at that stage was unheard of. Stupid fast. And they went one further. They made it properly good off-road too. So you could look at a Cayenne and think that your other true 4x4 is going to mince it off-road, and you could find yourself very sorely mistaken, because this is a very, very competent SUV. We have air suspension, we have all the modes, whatever it is you want to be able to achieve off-road, you can have it with the Cayenne. And it is Porsche comfortable, it is Porsche build quality, it's a Porsche. I am thoroughly enjoying this vehicle. We'll get into the interior a little bit. If I have to be sort of Alan nitpicky, there are maybe 1 or 2 little tiny, they're insignificant, but we'll mention them anyway because, you know, we just have to. And we'll get into the interior of the vehicle in a bit. For now, I'm just going to put it into D for drive on this wonderful new gear knob, which I'll show you a bit later. In fact, it's not a gear knob, it's just a gear switch. And I'm going to go and do a few Ks in it now. On the road of the Porsche, there's a lot of intelligence in this car in the way that the driving experience is enhanced. Yes, you've got flappy paddles. You don't really need them. I've used them a bit, but you don't actually really need them, which is a bit odd, because the drive modes in these cars, all the Cayennes, are so intuitive that actually if you're going to get a wriggle on, it knows that you're getting a wriggle on, so it holds the gears for you. That's just a normal mode. So it's thinking all the time about what's actually happening around the driver. If you put it into Sports Plus mode, it really doesn't want to change gears. It just wants to keep the engine on the boil for you all the time, so that you've got instant power at any given time, which is what we want. Because one of the little things here on the display is you can set lap times, which I know Miles is going to absolutely hate the fact that you have an SUV that can do lap times, because he's of the opinion, correctly, he has an opinion which is valid, that SUVs are not about lap times. They're about a sports utility vehicle, not robot-to-roboting racetrack fire-breathing monsters. But isn't it nice that you can have both? And it's a Porsche. Why would anyone buy anything else? Ridiculously comfortable in normal eco mode. It just eats up bumps and potholes and whatever road undulations are around it, just chews them up and spits them out. You can, of course, being a Porsche, set it into sport mode, and then you've got sport plus mode, which really firms up the suspension quite a lot. And what was originally already quite a good, well-handling car, vehicle SUV at 2.2 tons, becomes even better, because it drops the suspension a little bit, it tightens up everything a little bit, and it just makes this car give you a sense that you can hammer it almost like you would a 911. It has that level of smile-inducing, make anybody who's even a terrible driver look pretty good. And it is that exhaust. I can't get past it. It is a thing. It's wonderful. And the one thing with this car, of course, is that you really do need to watch your speed limits, because I found myself sitting north of the 120k limit without even knowing it. And there's no excuse, because you just got to look down at the very nice fancy digital display that you can customize almost infinitely, it looks like, to see where you're at. But you just don't bother, because it feels so effortless that you have no idea what speed you're actually doing in this car. So the cruise control that comes with it, which is not adaptive, by the way, is one of the little tiny things, you know, I'm sure you can specify it as an options. You know, welcome to the world of options in these level of cars. Is going to be well used by anybody who owns this. We're not going to bother talking about fuel consumption, because it's utterly irrelevant in this car, and we are going to talk about all the rest of the creature comforts after we've discussed, as I say, what is a stupendously beautiful ride and a very, very comfortable place to find oneself. Porsche really have outdone themselves in the creature comforts mode of well, creature comforts design philosophy or department. God, I'm becoming very tongue-tied and word-bound here by this car. Okay, I'll take that as a good thing. All right, of course, this being me, I've got to talk about the sound system. This one is from Bose, and if you crank this thing up to the levels that it is capable of doing, and your head does not implode, there's something wrong with you. I have never, well, I've heard once, but this is the second loudest car I think I've ever been in, and it is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I have no idea what Porsche were thinking about putting that into this car. I love them for it, but honestly, their target market who's going to be buying this car is not going to be listening to the music at the levels that that the system is capable of doing. Because if you do, I can promise you're going to have an accident. You are going to die in a new and interesting way, in a flaming car wreck somewhere. It is that loud, it will distract you from what's actually going on in an incredibly powerful car. An incredibly powerful car. And whilst I say incredibly powerful, I've got to have a shout out for the brakes on this thing. They are beyond phenomenal. These will rip your eyeballs out of your sockets. They are stupendously good. And I didn't do it, but Porsche claim, and I believe them, that you can do this thing, they will never fade. I believe them. I just believe them. They are that good. So maybe that's why you can have the loudest sound system known to man fitted to a car if you've got good brakes. Just an awesome, phenomenal combination. And just listen to this thing as I'm booted onto the highway. Oh! Out of my way, peasant! Oh, I love it. Let's talk about an interior of the Porsche. So I'm looking at the dash. There's quite a lot of stuff going on here with some sort of speeder that vaguely indicates what kind of zone you're in when you're pushing it, and really it's the last thing you're going to be looking at because you've got a big speedo thing right there on the dial. You can change these as you go. It's basically just accessed by the steering function here. So for example, you can see the right hand dial is changing, and if I want to swap, I can change the front dial to a whole different layout, to yet another layout. There are a whole bunch of these. Ooh, I quite like the map story, I must say. It's quite convenient, but then you lose the rev counter, which on Eco Drive, which is what I was doing, I actually want to keep going. So these are things that you can do, and you can see, you can set lap modes and all sorts of exciting things on the display. So Porsche have done quite a bit of work in terms of updating the electronics in the car. On the steering wheel, everything as you would expect. You have a non-adaptive cruise control set here, which is basically just pull it forward and turns itself on, which is great. The indicator's on the right hand side, in other words it's on the left, which is where it should be. And your flappy paddles are here. They're not massive big things like you get in Alphas, but they generally, you're not using them all that much, to be honest, and there's really hurrying on in the car. The nice little touch that's always a Cayenne feature is, of course, the digital, well, it's not digital, it's analog, but it feels digital, display for your directions, your height above sea level, 1,409, I'm sounding like Jacob Zuma, 1,494 meters above atmosphere. And then, of course, we've got our infotainment system here, which has got a bunch of stuff where you can set stuff in the car, and you've got all sorts of assist modes. You can put cruise control on from here if you want to. You can set your drive mode here, and you can tell it go to Sports Plus, which is cool. And then the dash actually changes to Sports Plus, what have you. You have your wireless charging here, and it's accessed by a very nice slide cover, which you cover it up. And then you have your temperature control system here, which is basically just your aircon and climate control. If you want to adjust where the air goes, you have to do it from here. Small little thing, really tiny. Heated seats, you can have vented, it's grayed out, which makes it an option on the car. Some storage space here for your drinks, and you have a nice big-ish glove compartment here. Oodles and oodles and oodles of space for everybody. I'm sorry, Porsche, I didn't get my umbrella. Water onto the seat of the car, and that's my cap for where I am today. And quite an attractive interior, I have to say. It's beautifully constructed, and it's just typical Porsche class. It's nothing outrageously over the top, but it is fancy, and it is cool, and it is going to last you for all time. Notice the passenger, I beg your pardon, has, similar to the driver, 3 memory functions on their seats, which really is a nice feature that I haven't seen before. The only thing I can say from the electronics that may be missing a little bit is I don't have a heads-up display. I would actually cost that and probably tick that box on my optional extras. The sunroof is not a sunroof. It is. It's just a panoramic glass roof, so that is quite cool. Obviously, the glass doesn't lift up, but look how far back this thing goes. It just keeps going. And Porsche, bless their little cotton socks, have got exactly the right amount of tint on this glass. Not too much, not too little. It adds an airiness to the car, which is really quite nice. Let me pop out and show you the back seats. Right, it has been raining, ergo the car is a bit dirty on the roads because there is no stuff. I've had children in the car, so you can see there's a bit of mess in here, but look at this legroom. And remember, the seats I have not adjusted at all. So this coupe is deceptively big in terms of how one sits. And it is really only, strictly speaking, a 4-seater with a middle seat for a child. But my word, you can get 2 rugby players onto those back seats without any hassle whatsoever. Again, quality everywhere you look, it just feels the part. Lines on the car, very attractive, I have to say. This being the coupe version, you've got that low slung back, accentuating the really nice ass on this car. It's no other way of putting it. And overall, with that roof line, look how cleverly they've done it. The glass actually sits above the dropping roof line, so it gives you that illusion of this coupe, but yet inside you still got all that room. It's clever. Of course, being a Porsche and being an S, you've got red calipers and the familiar front end, which looks still 911-ish, but still unmistakably Cayenne. Now, it is an attractive looking car. No two ways of slicing it. Right, let's have a look at the boot. Accessed by this very handy key fob. And ta-da! Oh, I have a cylinder head in there. Yeah. The joys of owning classic cars. It's nicely wrapped in the thing so it doesn't slide around and damage Porsche's interior. Look at the size of it. Massive. Okay, the sloping roof does take away a little bit of space up here. Porsche don't give me a litres count on it, but it doesn't really matter. If you fold those front seats, back seats forward, you get just stupid room because they do fold flat, as one would expect on the car. But really, for families and going on holiday, you will not want for a lack of space in the vehicle. And if I push this button here, it will both close and lock the car, which is cool. There we go. Just a note on the rims, these are 21-inch 285/45 Pirellis. Look at the profile on them. Actually quite thick, but given it's a 21-inch rim, that's why. And it gives you two things. One, ride comfort, and with that width, a huge amount of grip for when you're getting on in a hurry in this car. At the moment, you can see the suspension set is almost to its lowest. That's because I had it in Sports Plus mode for my Eco Drive. Yes, Sports Plus mode for an Eco Drive. The other thing I wanted to point out to you is in the boot, you actually have, because it's air suspension, you have the ability to lower the car when you are packing your whatever into it, if you want to access this load bin a little bit more easily, which is quite nice. The car will automatically then adjust itself to normal ride height when you turn it on. Alright, dear and valued viewers, in the most pointless test ever conducted in the history of humankind, I have driven 90.1 kilometers all the way to my little project here in Sasselbach, and I have averaged 11.2 liters per 100. And I've had some self-inflicted, well, not self-inflicted, but inflicted upon thine self roadworks, which has averaged my speed down to a total of 81 kilometers per hour over just over an hour's driving. Not too bad considering some of those speed restriction zones were down to around about 70 k's an hour, which I think certainly helped my fuel consumption a little bit. When we were able to get onto the open road, I popped it up to 120 plus the usual little 4 or 5 k's an hour that one allows for, that the speed cops, the piggies on the road, they give you a little bit of breathing room in terms of that limit. I did actually cheat a little bit. I put the car into Sports Plus mode, and Sports Plus mode lowers the suspension to the absolute lowest, reducing the aerodynamic footprint of this thing down to that of a large bus, from the enormous truck that it actually is to begin with. And of course, I don't have full control over the gearbox, because every time I bump it down into 8th, the car decides in about 30 seconds that I need to actually be in 6th gear, because it just knows better. And I love this gearbox, but it's not designed for eco driving, and I'm not entirely sure how you get full manual control over it. I don't think you can. It makes some decisions for you, and on the whole, generally those decisions are pretty good. So we'll see what it's like on the way back. What is interesting is I left the house this morning with 254 kilometers of range. I have arrived at my destination, let me remind you, 90 kilometers later, and I now have 223 kilometers of range. That I will take all day long. Okay, dear and valued viewers, shall we leave it there? It's been a trip back. I've done a total now of 182 kilometers at an average speed of 80 k's an hour over the trip, and I've averaged 11.2. So I've gone up slightly, but I did put it just in normal mode, so the ride height may have been a little bit higher, and maybe it was a little bit of extra wind drag that did it. But certainly the heart attack material that you get when you just start the car up for the first time in the morning of 50 liters per 100 is totally unjustified. And actually at 11.2, given the speeds I was doing and the relative comfort of this car, which is just exceptional, I really don't think that that's bad. You have a 4-liter turbocharged V8 under the bonnet. You can't expect miracles out of it. It's just a petrol pulverizer of some note. And I have to say that my time in the Cayenne is drawing to an end. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. And if you're in the league for this kind of vehicle, you have got to get into one of these and test drive it. I know we say that about all our reviews, but it's true. Because the levels of comfort, the levels of power, the sheer sophistication of the driving experience, and the confidence that this Cayenne will give pretty much anybody is something that you need to experience. And I'm sorry, Al, I got this one, and I'm not sorry at all, actually. So this is Will from Motor Matters, over and out, and we'll see you next time.
My name is Michael Porsche, and I'm the proud owner of Change Cars and the host of the TV show All Things Motoring. But I'm even prouder today to say that I work with Alan Rosenmeyer from Motor Matters, better known as the man with a hat. If you're looking for the best reviews on all new vehicles, Motor Matters. If you're looking for the best deals on new or used cars, changecars.co.za, where every car is sold by a 5-star rated manufacturer approved dealer.